to speak. Okay. So if anyone would like to come close and just let us know what they're currently working with, because we learn best from each other, and as teachers, we learn from the students all the time to understand what we can do to help them in their practices.
I guess because I haven't been doing them on a regular basis, I've been, being, I don't know, cautious. I guess I'd like to know if there's a supportive way, just so that I can maybe, I know you use props and then you don't use your own muscles, but to begin with, I guess, are there props that I could use? I guess the blocks, I know I remember those blocks. Is that a good way to just correct what I don't know is going on? I can't see myself doing it, so I'm not quite sure. Sometimes I feel very strong and I could stand there forever, and I don't do it on a regular basis, so that's probably part of the problem. I'm not sure.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. I'm going to answer all of those questions. I've just muted you, so. Okay, so there's a lot there. So if I forget, please remind me. First and foremost, I want to address the what you mentioned about props. Props do not mean you don't use the muscles. In a lot of ways, props actually inform how the muscles should be working, keep us safe, and they direct the muscles to the address we want them to go to if they're confused, right? Because say I have an upper arm injury and I go to take interlocking and my upper arm skin doesn't know how to externally rotate. It's just simply confused. So then how can I, work with that? I could take a belt and I could wrap it around that muscle and externally rotate it. Then I have a sensation that I can go to next time, right? We can use, I will show you over a chair, which is a way that you can go into an inversion without putting weight on a cervical spine. So if you've had a shoulder injury, neck injury, something like that, that is very beneficial. And also, like I would say, so here's what Gita Iyengar says. If you are perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, inversion should be done every day. They regulate the hormones. And, we have this pituitary gland that we stand on, and it's a growth hormone. And after about the age of 21, it really slows down. But when we're in inversions, we stimulate that gland. And so I'll read to you what the effects of inversions are. So basically, Shirshasana is the king and Sarvangasana is the queen, and they tonify the nervous system so that when we work up as a skilled practitioner into inversions, we find them very quieting for the brain because we go on our head and we have this ability to do pratyahara. Now that seems like, with the withdrawal of the senses, that seems a little bit weird for those of us that are struggling with inversions. Oh my God, I go up and I'm so unstable. So as Christine said, so there's lots of different things. And Christine, I know you have scoliosis like I do. So, the inversions right in the corner, where you're in the L of the corner, where you have the left side and right side. I'm sure you've been taught that before. Exactly, that's good. And also the corner of the corner, right? Where you're right up against the corner. I can't show that in this room, but I will. That is part of what I'm going to demo today. And so here's the thing, like if you go up one day and you don't feel stable, then don't stay up. Come down, maybe try again. If you're practicing at a level 3, typically you can be able to go up. Doesn't feel good. Like I go up, my blankets don't feel good, whatever the case may be. I come down, I reorganize, I go up again, or I go up, I hold for 5-10 minutes, change the interlock, and I go up again if I want to do my variations. So, but some days, don't feel that way. You feel like you've lost the asana, the comfortable seat inside of Shirshasana, then don't stay. But I would say don't avoid it. So if you can do it, don't avoid it, because it's cumulative. And it's one of those things, it's like, it's like losing a skill. If we, distance ourselves from it, then it becomes harder to do, right? And, there was a trend, I'm going to say it was in the 2000s, early 2000s, where there was a book written by a guy named James Broad about yoga and all the injuries that were occurring, and then inversions fell out of practice, and yada yada yada. And now, like, the tide's turning the other way. People are like, oh, I really missed inversions, and I understand the benefits, and so I'm going back to them. But the thing is, my question would be, is how were they either taught inversions, or how did they practice those inversions? Because it's really like, something's a king and a queen. It's not a casual thing, right? Not that I'm saying, okay, we have to have like respect for the monarchy. But just if something is given that kind of stature, then there's an element of importance to it. It should be observed. The yoga texts, they give us all the clues. It's whether or not we take the time to pick up those breadcrumbs along the way and say, okay, I'm going to try and understand this in my own body. And so, yeah, those are really good questions. I hope I answered everything. So props, yeah, blocks can be used. Obviously I have this rope system. Not everybody has that. That's rope Shirshasana. That's how, Christine, you probably know, back in Markham, when I had the ropes, that was how I got people upside down, just for the simple fear of going upside down, get them out of their fear. I had those 2 ropes that hung in the center of the room. I miss those dearly, but anywho, that's a whole other thing. But yeah, so just like taking the fear out of it too, right? Because it can cause fear. So just understanding that, and then approaching it in a way that's not aggressive, approaching it in a way that brings joy, compassion, friendliness, like Sutra 133, right? That approach to ourselves. And also, that sutra talks about not being like good or bad, not being attached to the good or the bad. Oh, my headstand was really bad today. Oh, it was really good today. Just going, I did my version of my Shirshasana, and this is what happened. So Abhijata, Iyengar's granddaughter, said, she went to her grandfather, okay, Guruji, I stayed in headstand 20 minutes today. I worked up to it. And he said, what did you do? Oh, I struggled. I was like, after 5 minutes, it was such a torture for me, but 20 minutes and I wanted to. And so he said, well, why did you stay? Because that's not yoga. And so we sometimes get, caught up with that, and it's not helpful. So the tools very much for Shirshasana are very important. Sometimes people will use them for forever. If they have a pre-existing condition, if, there's been some kind of injury there, then they will go up with the blocks, or they will go up with the ropes, or they will, whatever the case may be. But I would say that they don't make the body lazy. We should flip that on its head. That's old thinking. That's so 90s. I would say, as a teacher, I've been teaching for a long time now. Back in the day when I first started as a freelance teacher, in the Thornhill, Richmond Hill, Vaughan, Markham area, I would go to these predominantly like Ashtanga studios, and people are like, oh, I don't need a block. No, I'm good. And I'm like, you kind of need a block. And because they were like, couldn't reach the floor, and the prana wasn't moving. I didn't care about the like, oh, wow, look at that guy's pose. It's like the prana would, because of all the blockages in the body or the tightness, prana would flow from here to here, then stop, and then here to here and stop. But if you used a block, wow, you could straighten your arms, you could straighten your legs, channel, right? The the nadis, the tubes, the channels, they need to be opened, right? For things to flow, the blood vessels, they need to be opened for things to flow. So, but I find that's totally different now. Students are like into it. They're intelligent. I think they're smarter. I'm like, no offense to that, but you know what? There's more yoga now, right? That was back in the day when there wasn't as much yoga. So there's that too. So people are more informed, but I do not find that resistance. In the beginning, it was a headache. So I'm not like forcing stuff on you. I'm just giving you ways in. There's many doors in. There's so many different paths, right? And there's a way on a Monday, there's a way on a Tuesday, there's a way on a Thursday. And so, not that we skip Wednesday, but you know, even Iyengar said, if you can't get to any of your other practices, so here's another clue. If you can't get to any of your other practices, at least do your inversions. And he wanted us to take care of ourselves. He wanted to take care of ourselves through what he learned. He wasn't going to get anything out of saying, please do your inversions. So, you know, and on an interesting side note, people recommended to him that he trademark the props because they come from this lineage, but many people don't know that. And he said, no, why would I want to make money off a wooden block that's there for humanity? So, you know, he's not getting anything out of us saying, please insert a wooden block between your palms or whatever the case may be. So thanks, Christine. That was very helpful. Yes, Betty?
I don't mind doing headstand, but I always have a little concern about how much pressure to put on my head.
Mm-hmm.
When I was originally taught, the teacher said you should be able to put a piece of paper between your head and the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Is that your understanding?
I mean, in the beginning, yes, but as we progress, that weight should be bearable. And there is a seal there, you know, where your crown is touching. But I mean, I think it was good advice from that teacher, because what they were trying to get you to do is use your upper body strength. And so, yeah, I think that's a great way to instruct how to do, and maybe the sensation that you should go for, because you want to feel like you've got that much resistance that you could actually have that space. But there's kind of a 60-40 distribution, what we say generally in Iyengar yoga, forearm to the crown of the head, 60-40. But there is, you know, advanced shirshasans, which we're not going to get into today, that don't actually use the hands at all, the arms. He's on his crown of his head and his arms are at the sides of the body, right? Wow. So in that case, all you do is put the weight on your head. So as we progress.
Yeah. Is there concern about neck when you do that, neck injuries, or?
I mean, you'd have to be an adept practitioner to do that. I wouldn't just like, okay, let's break it out and give it a try. It's hard. It's the hardest to teach is Shirshasana online. And so I think that you have to feel so here's the thing. I would go, if you're concerned with your neck, touch and go the headstands. Go into the headstand, come out, maybe keep a log. Okay, how did my neck feel? Like if I'm prone to neck problems, if I'm prone to headaches, look at your eyes in the mirror. What do they look like? Are they glassy? Are they bright? They should be bright. It should be like polishing the stone. How do you feel? And then try a few other ways in and see how that responds. And also, if you're concerned about the neck, I'm going to show some neck releases to when you come out of Shirshasana. That would be like, you know, brushing your teeth. So regular practice when you come down. And then the simple things like making sure you're not going into misalignment. So making sure you're crossing the interlock differently each time you go in, you know, so that we're not constant, because this will cause a misalignment. This is my habit. See how easy I went into it. It just does, right? But this is not, but I have to remind myself, okay, I got to go up this way today. So all the things, we should take a look. And Christine had something, she said, I can't see myself. Well, actually, one of the beauties of what we're all doing now is you can record yourself. And so you can see yourself, have someone come in, take a picture, and that would be a good idea, is have either set your phone up in a way that it could capture you, and then you come down and you look and see, okay, and really be honest with yourself. Is my neck, am I crooked? You know, all the things that the teacher would say, okay, left hip is sliding back. So I'm going to show you how you can make corrections in your, once you're up today. But it's important to really observe how we're doing in that, I think, rather than just throw it away. But those are great questions. So there is a concern, but there's also a way in through that concern. And I'm going to show also from now on, I'm going to teach, instead of doing things like Prasarita Padottanasana, which is that wide-legged pose where we take the tripod arms. I'm going to start teaching, instead of the students not doing headstand anymore, Viparita, Dvipada Viparita Dandasana over the chair for neck curvature. So that is the back bend over the chair that we do. I'm going to start teaching a lot of that, because that is the key to the neck condition. So if you're concerned about the neck, this is the first step. So hopefully that answers the question.
Okay.
Yes, Nancy?
I have maybe a different kind of issue with my neck. I'm not sure, but I just want to check in. My neck is crooked, and my head doesn't sit in the right position on my neck. So, I mean, and I'm very, very tight through the neck and the shoulders. And whenever I actually can get up in Shirshasana. I used to use the 2 blocks and come up over the blocks. But every time I would do that, I would have like a massive headache, like just even on was it Tuesday, the class when we went over and the bolster and onto the back of the head, I had a really bad headache after that too, even.
Yeah,
So
okay, so that's the tight chest.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Nancy, I think that you're,
I'm just kind of stuck there. Like I'm stuck there. Like I'm not.
I think I need to see that, and I think I need to work with you in the ropes, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's traction work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And like I do a hanging Shirshasana over my Simhasana bench, where I support the head, the neck, the bolster, when I'm feeling that area is needing some care. And I think it's a matter of, like, we have to get some blankets in the back of the neck, roll blankets, and get your head in alignment and get you to open up your chest. And that's a more therapeutic kind of work that you need some help with. Like, I mean, I don't want to tell you what to do, but from my perspective, that's not a one-man job. That's where a teacher can really help. One-person job, I apologize. And that's where seeing and being together is really important.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, I would try to digest chair Viparita Dandasana as much as possible. And even in lieu of, and using support for your head, I'll show you how to use a double chair for that. And so that you don't have to take your head so far back, because we have to start where we're at, right? And if this is locked up, you know, a good test is if we interlock our hands, we can all do this, behind our head, and take your interlock that you're least familiar with I don't mean to point my finger at you. And then interlock your hands and then take your elbows no wider than your shoulders. And then pull the elbows up towards the ceiling. So look to see, you should be able to see the elbows from the corners of your eyes, that they're right in your field of vision. And pull up and roll up. And you should feel, and Nancy, I can see right now the chest is tight. So you should be able to feel, you can take expansive breaths here. And chin soft. And don't take your head so far back. And Christine, same. So it's like the crown of the head is facing the ceiling here. And so what you're doing is you're pulling your head out of your shoulders, but maintaining that lift in the chest. And that's not like a natural shape for our bodies anymore, really, right? So those are just little signposts along the way. And if that felt like work, right, then that's some way in as well. So, you know, all of this work,
Yeah.
my first teacher, God bless her, like I was in my mind going, this woman is torturing us. She literally would have us belt our arms. We would sit like this for half an hour before pranayama. And I was thinking, like, what is she doing? But she was trying to teach newbies pranayama. So here's a couple things. I was actually, I'm sure just going to take a few common household yoga items that might be of use. These questions are great, so thank you so much. We might have to do a part 2, but I'm really happy that you have these questions. So see how I take this rolled yoga mat and I wrap my arms around it and see the shape of my chest, right? So this is shoulder stand, really, right? And shoulder stand is the precursor to headstand. So as I'm working like this, and what I'm doing is I'm lifting to the diaphragm of the chest, lifting off the abdominal area, and palms face the ceiling, and then I get this broadness across the chest. So we have also, you know, we have the dowel. I was just thinking of one of my students, she always moans when I bring up the dowel. But so the dowel, I sometimes have students that are really tight in shoulder stand that can't bear the belt over their upper arms. Use the dowel on their back. There's that. And these are readily available at Home Depot, not that I'm plugging anyone. And then we have, you know, these slanted planks are widely used in Iyengar yoga. This is one of their use. So, you know, these things really help, but it's like time. It's
Yeah.
You know, and so sorry, go ahead.
What about like when I am like say watching television or something, and I sit on the couch with a big stiff pillow behind me, and then I'm like this. Is that helpful, do you think?
Yep, that's very helpful.
I'm constantly trying to stretch, like in here and here, and I can see when I look at my back in the mirror, you know, I hold a mirror and there's like from my neck down to like probably the middle of my thoracic spine, maybe there's like a V shape. I can see where the muscles just aren't, like they're stiff, like they're not engaging. I think they're like it's a definite V.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'd have to see that either in a picture form or see you in person.
Yeah.
Which, anyways, I'm not even gonna go there. But I think this is a good, you've got a healthy range of motion here. I think it's here. So think of those Indian deities that have all those arms. Wouldn't that be cool? I would totally sign up for that. They can go, you know, here, 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 but we have that ball and socket joint in the arm and the shoulder, that range of motion. So we want to work on all of those planes. And so maybe you've really nailed this, and this is good. I mean, this is like uplifting the spirits, right? Because it's like lift your chest, open your heart. You know, you feel better. It's like getting a boost without going to the cannabis store. No offense. Okay. Anyways, so but I think it's here, right? And that's where the wood is really important. So if someone has a cardiac issue, they come to a therapeutic yoga class. The practice is like we use a lot of hard surface because this is a rib cage. We got to penetrate that. Soft bolster doesn't work so much. So lying over the blocks to your tolerance level, always making sure you support the head. So have your head a little bit higher than the back, upper back, and then see, you know, where you can start to feel that area start to move if it feels caught. And the pectoral muscles, they're you know, these guys, they really, they shrink up. And so, you know, it's really, this is sometimes the problem, these muscles right here. So seeing that we can expand those. So I have lots of arm work that will address some of that. Thank you. Hopefully that helped a little bit. Okay, any other questions? See something in the chat here. Where do you get a yoga chair? Okay, yoga chair. So Karen, what I've been doing right now for my students is they've been able to borrow a chair from me to practice. So if anyone here would like to borrow a chair, and I don't know, do you still have yours, or did you returned it, right? So, I mean, I don't know. I'm not, anyways, this hasn't been a good week for me on all that front. So, you know, the other thing is there's a yoga studio in Calgary. My friend Sharoni runs Iyengar Yoga Calgary. And some of the people in our immersion program, the Your Year of Yoga program, have purchased a yoga chair through her. And it's shipping in Canada, so it's not outrageous. And she said the quality was excellent. So I can send you that link. Yeah. And she also has other props. I looked into other props for the students in the immersion program, and shipping is really high. So I was going to do a bulk order, and I just decided, like, you know, you guys go ahead and order your own things because it doesn't make sense, and who knows when it's going to arrive. So, but the Calgary Institute, they had some good availability of the chairs. Chairs are hard to find. I don't know why it became a hard commodity to find. Okay. So, and chairs are important. I would say as a level 3 practitioner, I don't like to tell people what to do, but it's important to have a chair. You can do so much with it. Yes, Anne.
Can you speak, you've talked about this before, but how come I find headstand no problem, shoulder stance can't stand it? So can you speak about why people find one pose easier than the other? Why is there a conflict there?
Shoulder stand is harder. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Iyengar was a wise man. He you know, in other lineages, it's not uncommon to see headstand before, or sorry, after shoulder stand as well. But he wanted to balance the energy. So we raise the energy up. So a Shirshasana is a masculine energy and Sarvangasana is a cooling energy. So then it usually presents itself at the end of the class, not always. And in some therapeutic cases, like epilepsy, I believe, shoulder stand would come before headstand. But, you know, if we look at the way it's taught as it is, so Iyengar, when he laid out how to teach and what to teach, he was really specific about getting the students to know how to do shoulder stand first, because he knew it was harder. But in some ways, easier to get into, because you're not like relying on your own limbs to support you. Now you'll notice in hatha yoga practices and even light on yoga, there's no support used under the shoulders, right? He's just on the floor, he comes up. But our modern shoulders don't really adapt to that well. So I think students go south a few ways. One is they don't pay enough attention to their setup. Setup is really important. It's like you're having, you know, just say your mother-in-law was the fussiest person in the whole wide world. You're having her over for dinner. You take extra care, right? You're like, okay, I'm going to make sure I vacuum because you're going to, oh, your dog shit. This is my mom. Your dog shit all over the place. Anyways, but I mean, it's like being really intentional about how you make your setup. And I'm just gonna say that right out of the gate. Number two is, it's probably the most customizable pose in that we have to tinker with it. It takes some tinkering. It's like add a blanket, take a blanket, stagger blankets, line up blankets, fold this, put something under the head, don't do this. And so it's really like you have to check in with yourself. As I was mentioning to Betty, how do I feel after? Oh, it's like not so good. Or when you're in the pose, I can't really swallow. We should be able to swallow, feel like we can talk. And years ago, for those of you that were there when Louis Etling from Vancouver visited and taught a workshop, she said we should be able to sing a lullaby at every asana. So there's a softness in Sarvangasana that we should really be finding. So the way in is through chair Sarvangasana, but then we shouldn't get stuck in that zone. Then that's becoming reliant on props in not a good way. Oh, I'll just do chair Sarvangasana. Feels better, it's easier to get into, but we should progress. So Iyengar says that we should be able to hold independent Sarvangasana. And this also really informs our Shirshasana. Independent Sarvangasana, meaning not using the wall, in the room for 5 minutes before we attempt headstand. So let's raise our hands if we're not in that camp, right? I mean, yeah. So why would he say that? Again, there's a clue, right? There's a breadcrumb, and maybe it's worth looking into, okay, what is that? Why would he say something like that? By doing the work, because otherwise we won't know the answer to the question. And so sometimes it takes a little bit longer to make a friend with a pose than others. Just like, you know, I remember my son, he's very extroverted. He was in Montessori school. There was this one cool kid, Irie, that he got everyone else on his team, couldn't get, and every day, Mom, Irie doesn't like me. He won't talk with me. He won't play soccer with me at recess. I don't know why. And I said, Kyle, sometimes you just got to let it go. Well, Kyle was not good with that. He beat this kid down until they were friends, and he just stuck with it. And it was hard. And he had to go through like a lot of like, Kyle, get away. You know, you're bugging me. you're too young. I don't want to play with you. But he was like, hey, Irie, look, do you want half my sandwich, or whatever the case may be? And so I give him credit for that, because I mean, he stuck with it, because I think he knew he was going to feel something really good at the end of it. Or he thought, okay, I'm worth knowing. You should know me. So I think, you know, the answer to your question lies in the pose, really. It's like, what can I do to make friends with this pose? Maybe I approach it through doing Ardha Halasana for some time before I go up in Sarvangasana. Maybe I approach it like a slow cooked meal, not like a drive-through snack, as Raya would say, and just only practice Sarvangasana for the day. That's my goal, right? Maybe I touch headstand and then I go, like Iyengar said, if you don't have time to do anything else, just do Sarvangasana. And maybe we set ourselves up for Sarvangasana. And I struggled with Sarvangasana for years. I had to belt my legs, put a block in between my legs, strap my legs. Yeah, I'm with you, but it's a wonderful thing. And, you know, I've had this cold, right? So what cleared up my cold was a long Sarvangasana. So, and that's why Iyengar, it's not, he just doesn't call it the queen of poses, he called it the mothering pose. So it's like sinuses, digestion, hormonal relief, nervous system. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So if you have a copy of Light on Yoga, read the effects of it and then say, would I like that in my life? And maybe, you know, and so, yeah, and challenge me to teach more of it, because I'm guilty for, you know, wanting to get so much stuff in, and then the end of the class, oh geez, I didn't do my, okay, we'll just do Setu Bandha over a block, forget the Sarvangasana. So I'm not doing that anymore. So I'm on the path with you. We'll work through that together. But thank you. It's true. It is. It's like you have to eat your dinner before you have your dessert. The other thing is there's a physicality in Shirshasana. If you think about it, it feels good. We use our muscular body, and we, you know, for the first little while, we can just like fling ourselves up physically. And in Sarvangasana, it's like there's an integration, right? It's more like a ballet than it is you know, hip hop. And, you know, then after a while, our Shirshasana has to become like the ballet as well. Otherwise, we're going to create a problem for ourselves. But we can actually just like get up there and be there and go, oh my God, I made it up. We've all felt that, right? And then we have to go for the refinement. So, you know, in Iyengar yoga, we time ourselves, and that's how I got, I don't want to use the word strong, made friends with some of my challenging asanas. So my challenging asanas were Supta Virasana, you know, lying back with my legs in Virasana. That I thought was going to break me in half. Now it's my go-to pose. And I timed myself with the respect of when I'm done, I get up. But I would work to 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes. And same with Sarvangasana, very hard pose for me, very, very difficult pose. Dog pose, downward facing dog, very hard pose for me. So it's not always like the ones that are at the back of the book, but you stick with it because you know there's some nectar in there that's important. And so Prashant is very clear about using a timing device to time ourselves in the asana. And he said it's almost better to do a countdown than a timer, to like go up in the asana, be there, come down and go, oh, 3 minutes. Okay, that felt like, I don't know. And then go up again the next day and just have the timer, this like a stopwatch, run down. And then, oh, 5 minutes. Okay, yeah, I felt really integrated. I could stay longer. But, you know, I'm honest. I sometimes set a 5 minute, 10 minute timer. If I want to, you know, I'm working on Shirshasana 2, the tripod headstand. So I'm timing myself for 5 minutes in that. And I set a timer. But if I don't feel good, I come down before, or if I want to stay longer, I set my timer in a way that it's not so annoying. And I just stay beyond so we really have to watch ourselves there, because it can be dogmatic, and it's not meant to be dogmatic. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Oh, Karen, yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for me, I left trying to get into headstand probably about, I can't believe it, I think it's probably been about 12 years. So my practice changed how I was practicing. I was in kind of a Ashtanga based practice, but it had been a hybrid, and all of my teachers had their first foray in yoga was Iyengar. So we had a lot of props. We had a lot of brought the Iyengar base, but then they had Ashtanga. So anyways, that was my foray for many years. But headstand always caused me a lot of fear. One, it didn't feel good for my neck. And I found I couldn't garner what I felt was core strength into the pose, to get out of the pose, and also to stay in the pose. but fundamentally it was fear. But now that I'm very much perimenopausal, like
Yeah,
hot, and the years of nervous system stuff and yoga has helped for sure. But as I hear you talk about it, it's like I just feel like the inversions are calling me back. And certainly the teachers that I had in the yoga therapy, inversions are very much important. It just I don't know how I avoided them all these years, when I kind of dropped that way of practicing. So I think many reasons I want to be able to do headstand, but it's more overcoming a fear, because I feel like it's a fear that might drive other things that I don't even know about.
yeah.
And so, but also just good old fashioned, some hormonal balance would be really good, because this whole situation isn't going where. So I want to meet it with inversions, because I think that's what it requires.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to send you all a booklet that Gita wrote. It's beautiful. It's a woman's practice throughout the life, and she'll refer to menstruation quite a bit, but she will say right after menstruation, go into your inversions. And the reason for that is it brings things back to balance. And so I'll send that out to remind myself. I think I'm not full. I can remember that. It's a very interesting perspective on things. And so and Iyengar himself too, he was really focused on women's health because his first group of students were females. How weird is that? And so I think that's a noble pursuit. And we can't like get all attached to what we didn't do. It's not going to help. But I think that, if we touch these inversions, we can find the essence in them at any stage. There's this like famous story that the Queen of Belgium wanted to learn how to stand on her head at 83 and approached Guruji, and he was like, well, I can't like be teaching you if I have to say your majesty. And she just said, madam, just call me madam. And he's like, no, you're too old. And she said, what are you saying? You said yoga's for everyone. And so he said, okay. And she got on her head. She saw him do a demonstration, because he used to do these demos in Europe. And back before they had Netflix, I guess that was their form of entertainment, watching a yoga teacher from India. But yeah, so she saw him and she was inspired. And there's a big fear complex. Like, for those of you that you can see these ropes, and in the studio I have a sling. I had a student, it took me, I'm gonna say, almost 2 years to get her to hang upside down from the ropes. But she came in every class, she went to the ropes, she got as far as getting the harness behind her. I held her in, like, I held her back. She would tilt back into my arms. She'd almost get there. And I've never seen someone sweat so much in my life. Almost get there. And we worked and worked and worked. And then one day she got in, and that was it. But she had this thing that was very fearful. And it's not, it can be like, when I had my son, for example, I was pregnant, I was doing headstand all over the place. I was in like this demo on Yonge Street. I was like 8 months pregnant. They're taking pictures of me. I did the best handstands ever because my center of gravity was like so formed, right? And then I was two weeks late, and my teacher's like, are you still standing on your head? I'm like, yes. She's like, you got to stop standing on your head. But I did go in for a session with her, and she hung me upside down on the ropes, and she worked with the baby to see. And she said to me, I don't want you to be disappointed, but your pelvis, maybe not, meaning that I might need a C-section, right? And so she's like, just stop standing on your head and then see how it goes. So I was like, I don't want to give everyone the gory details, but I had a wonderful pregnancy. I did not have a good labor. It was very long. I was very close, but I avoided the C-section. And I do believe it's from a lot of Upavista Konasana and Baddha Konasana work, but the recovery was really important for me. And also the fear I had going back into the class to do headstand was unbearable. So I know what students go through. And my teacher said, you've had a child, so if you feel like you fall out of headstand now, no one's gonna be able to look after your child. And it was true. It was like this, what is that primal brain, the amygdala or whatever. It was something in there that came up. And I would go to the wall and she would say, come down. And she'd pull my mat into the center of the room and I'd shake like a leaf and I'd go up and I'd come down and I'd crawl back to the wall. She'd come back to me, come down, and we'd have this like tug of war. And I hated her, but now I love her because I could have stayed at the wall forever. And it was just something, it's nothing to do with my physical body. It was just something that I was holding on to that, as a new mother. So I get the fear. I totally understand that. I went through it. It was palpable. I could feel it. But then it made me respect it more. So I'm not at all casual with my inversions. And I take it very seriously. So I respect where I'm at with it. And, on days where my energy is really low, I do an alternative. I hang or I go over a chair or I try it and I come down. And so, yeah, those are great. And I will see if I can just take a snapshot of the effects of inversions. I think Iyengar also wrote, there's either an interview with Gita on inversions. I'll send those so you understand the effects. Because then I would say, if you read the effects, I would say, insert the question, do I want this in my life? Or would I appreciate more of this? If we know, my son, he's 17, so he thinks everything's going to be like this, right? And I'm like, Kyle, you got to give it time, take some time. So that's what I would say with this. It's not a quick fix. It's not a panacea, but it's kind of like a gift. If you choose to use it, it's there. That can serve you for forever, right? There's this famous yoga teacher, Vanda Scarvalli. She was connected to Canada. She actually taught quite a bit through Esther Myers. She studied with Iyengar for years, and she created her own practice from there. She's lovely, a teacher. And so she was practicing Shirshasana into her 90s. So there you go. Okay, any other questions? All right. Okay. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Look, we're going to get started. Okay. Now, I think we're going to have to parse this into a few classes. So if there's interest, we'll come back to it and maybe do one on Tuesday. But let's just get started now. I'm going to have you start by, let's do dog pose with the head supported on a bolster, just to kind of get out of our heads, because this is what an inversion should feel like. And I'm just going to give you some instructions on what to do in this dog pose to serve the C7 area. So for starting here, we have this bony protrusion called a C7 that we can kind of find in our own body here, right? And so in this case, if you take your fingers, you want to hook it downward and inward, and it will lift your head up. So hopefully you can see here, will lift your head up, and almost then you can feel a demarcation between the skin that's above it towards the hairline and the crown of the head, and then the skin that's below it towards the trapezius and then the tailbone. So if we hook it down and in, That's what we're looking for in our inversions. We actually, so Gita Iyengar says it should feel like it goes into its cave. So it hooks down and in. And in some cases, that's the site of an injury for some people, or it's a sensitive area. And so you want to bring your attention to what needs attention, right? So when we do our dog pose with the head supported, it should inform how your neck should feel in your Shirshasana. So let's use the wall so we can really, use that traction with our hands, thumb and forefinger against the wall, bolster and or blanket for your head. And now I'm just going to move my hair on way. I know we sometimes put our forehead on the bolster. For today's purposes, we're going to take the crown of the head and place that on the bolster. And so this is a way of feeling that the crown of the head is down. And make sure the arms are straight. So don't bend your arms to reach the bolster. Add height to the bolster so you can really get into the arms. You can take the legs wider if you need to. Be on the back of the crown of the head. Now there's no weight on your head. Now it's all in the arms. Arms are straight. Wrap the skin of the upper arms externally, rotate, and lift the outer hips up. And then bring your attention to that C7 area. So you're pushing, energetically pushing the wall away from you there. Connect with your breath. And, this is something that you can do. For example, if you're finding Shirshasana challenging, work up to a 5-minute timing in this asana. So sometimes we work with, what is complementary, this is going to supplement your Shirshasana. So see where, you're finding challenges here and work on trying to refine that. Feel the space between the armpit and the side wall of the chest, the upper arm. Head quiet. So you pacify the brain by taking the crown of the head down, which is why, these inversions are so important. Also for the immune system. Just a few more moments here before you come down. And then slowly bend your legs and release. So a 5-minute supported Adho Mukha Svanasana might be your inversion for the day, right? And then you can start to see where you're, collapsing, losing endurance, where you're troubleshooting, right? You're just checking in to see, is there a pain in one arm? Is one arm not supporting? Do I feel like I'm tilting onto one side of my neck? You could even take a picture of yourself here. That would be very telling, right? So, okay. Now, arms work. I think I'm going to break this in because I have a lot to go through. I think I'm going to break it up into categories. So today we're just going to do arm positions to get a sense of the range of motion in this ball and socket joint action in our arms. So stand up on your mat in Tadasana. I'm just going to move my top here. And then you can take your feet together or hip distance apart, whatever feels better for you. Have your arms out to the sides in Tadasana. So Iyengar says in Tadasana, it's the first asana. If we master this, our work is done. So this is actually that headstand I was referring to earlier on. We, in an advanced headstand, we just go upside down like this. So we are completely on the crown of the head. So if you had to do that action now, you know that you would need to reach the crown of the head towards the ceiling rather than let it collapse in. So pull the upper arms down. So even though we're just on the head, we're not using the arms, we're still using the arms. And then reach those upper arms behind the side walls of the chest. And then lift the side walls of the chest up. Head in line with the shoulders, eyes in front, stand firm. And how we stand in Tadasana can really inform our Shirshasana. So really energize the arms, like almost imagine that you have wrist weights on your arms. And so they're pulling the wrists down and you're rolling those upper arms back. So that upper arms externally rotate, the biceps start to roll forward, triceps start to roll back. And then we talk a lot about the sternum bone. So lift from the bottom of the sternum bone, the back of the sternum bone. So that which would face inside of you should lift up and move to the front. First it moves forward and then it lifts up. Good. And then just notice where you start to waver, because where you waver here, you'll also take into your headstand. And you could have it take a picture of yourself or stand into a full-length mirror here, just to see what would I look like standing on my head. Now let's go ahead and interlock the hands here and do that same Shirshasana action and draw the back ribs in. So without popping the front ribs forward, stand tall and create space in the armpit area. So Christine, take a look at my arms. And yes, and see how your upper arm's tilting so far back. Keep the elbows parallel to the floor, so that the elbows are no wider than the crown of your head. Sorry, no higher than the crown of your head. Your head will be a little bit higher. And then draw, so challenge yourself now to go more narrow than shoulder, like, so this is easier, right? If we let's just let go for a second. And then draw the elbows in as though you want to squeeze a yoga block between the inner elbows. Squeeze that block and lift it up. Be firm in the abdominal area, sides of the navel back, and then reach up. For a lot of us, we're short right here. So this is challenging. Then exhale and release. Change the interlock, do the other side. And then just observe when you change the interlock, what is the sensation? So then Iyengar talks about the teacup and saucer, which is really nice. So the action is like this. So the hands are the saucer, the head is the teacup. You place the back of the head right into the palms of the hands. And then see the elbows pointing directly forward and keep pulling forward, pull forward, pull forward, pull forward. Good. And then exhale and release. Good. So maybe you do that before you go up into headstand, just to have a sense of, you know, proprioception, where my limbs are moving in space. Gravitational, anti-gravitational. One of the biggest lessons I learned in the beginning, which really helped me understand all this stuff, was using poses to that were going towards gravity, against gravity, and how to move myself away from them and take them on like a different degree. Standing up, sitting down, lying down, head down, head up, and then just taking the same shape on all those different angles. Okay, so now you're going to stand up again. And let's extend our arms first up in Urdhva Hastasana. And what I wanted to say, and I did forget, I apologize, what I wanted to say when you're doing this interlock stuff is that, so we can do it quickly one more time. When you're doing this, you don't want to feel a narrowness. You actually want to feel expansion across your chest. So if this is feeling like it's getting tighter, then there's work to be done. But if you feel like you've got space and breath is easily coming, then that shape is coming in your body. Okay, because our modern shoulders, like we've done a lot to them, right? So they take a while to decalcify. Okay, I'm just gonna move this. Clutter, so stand with your arms now in Urdhva Hastasana. Reach up, reach the fingertips up towards the ceiling. Draw the back ribs in and up. Soften the throat. So here too is a good way to determine, and you can, again, look at yourself in a mirror doing this. Are you doing, you know, something like this? You want to feel like you can create space. And maybe you need to take your arms a little wider to do that. So if you do, then that means you're going to have to work on your variation of headstand. And then from there, you're going to join the palms, if you can, in Namaskar. So that means you'll come here to here, but see how my upper arms go behind my head. And maybe that's not available to you. Maybe instead what you do is you hold a belt as much as you can with your hands as close together. Good, because this is the classical way that we do Virabhadrasana 1, Warrior 1. So arms are straight, good. Throat quiet. And push up through your hands. You know, one way we used to practice is we put a belt around our wrists, and then our partner would tighten it for us, and we would reach up from where that belt was, just like a bracelet across the wrists. Good. And see if you can take your upper arms back. If you've got a decent range of motion there, in India, what they would sometimes do is cut your arms back, cut your arms back, cut your arms back, cut your arms back. But this may be too much for you, right? So you want to feel like I can still talk, but if I couldn't, then that's not something I should be doing right now. Maybe I'm starting here. Okay, good. And you had a question?
Are your shoulders coming up with your arms, or are you pulling your shoulders down and then just trying to separate between your shoulders and your arms? Are your shoulders lifting up with your arms?
Yeah.
And you're almost shrugging?
No.
Okay.
No, so the inner shoulder blades are moving down. It's a really good question. It's such a complicated question. The inner shoulder blades are moving down. The outer shoulder blades are moving out. I don't know if my t-shirt can show, but I'm trying to take the inner shoulder blades down and the outer shoulder blades out, which will mean that I can get space there. So you want to feel like this area is actually reaching back as this area moves in. And that's going to help lift the chest up. Yeah, it's okay. Now stand again in Tadasana. I will say, maybe some of you guys got taught, and not that it's wrong, but we often would do this hooking of the thumbs over the head. You know, you've probably even been in class with me when I've done it instead of that. And all the time now, the classes from India, they're saying don't do it. I think because it's causing a misalignment in the shoulder, because I practiced it after Raya said don't do it. And I was like, you know what? It actually, because the tendency is we probably hook the thumbs one way more than the other. So I'm not sure, but I think there's something to that. So just in case you take a class from India and they say, don't hook your thumbs, you've been warned. Okay, so I'm just joking. Okay, stand on your mat, feet together, extend your arms out. Draw the back ribs in, lengthen the sides of the spine, lift from the bottom of the sternum bone. Stand firm, stand tall, be like a scarecrow. So it's almost like, you know, you have a dowel behind you. And ideally, you know, my dowel would be long enough that I could straighten my arms. So for those of you that have a challenge with this is like you know, it could be a broom handle. You don't have to necessarily go buy something, but just avoid, you know, any of this stuff. This is where the mirror, the picture can really help, right? Because you want to stand firmly in your Tadasana. And this is where you can start to get a sense of what's happening in the core when you go upside down. So the core should feel engaged, meaning that the sides of the knee will move back. Good. So palms face the floor. Draw the back ribs in. Yeah, if you have a dowel, good. And, you know, this is something you could time yourself for, right? Just to see. And look at your arms. See which arm is higher, lower. You know, with your eyes, and with your inner eyes. And you might be surprised at what you think, right? Because I know for me, my right shoulder is tighter. And you know, if I look at it, it's like, usually I have to give it a little bit more attention. And so there's this famous story my one teacher, Marlene Mawini, would say is they went to India, it was an intensive, and all these Australian male teachers showed up, and there was these Canadian female teachers, and they looked at each other and said, oh my goodness, we're dead. Because once Guruji starts teaching these male teachers, they're just, you know, we can't keep up with them. And Marlene said Guruji had them do 3 hours of this work, and they were all like melting in a puddle. So it's, you know, we can do this super casually, right? We're looking for the embodiment. So when I extend my arms to the side, do I feel the energy flow? Or if I just like, okay, you know, this kind of thing where, you know, we all looked at, you know, when exercise became a thing, we did things kind of haphazardly, right? Remember like those 20-minute workouts and stuff. Jane Fonda, we didn't think about the after effect. She even went on camera and said, I really, like, she had what, a double hip replacement. I apologize for all that because I didn't know. She didn't know. It's not her fault. Nobody knew. Maybe the person that trained her or the trainer's trainer's trainer, right? So like it's in Iyengar yoga, we don't blame, not to blame, but we don't look at the student or the teacher in training. We look at their teacher as, you know, it's like looking down the chain to see where did this pattern occur, right? And so now we know, like my mom used to do this workout stuff like this, and I'd say, Mom, there's not really much going on there. She said, I know, but the lady on the tape says do this, but really, this is harder. Sometimes it's a lot harder to be still than it is to move. And so imagine, you know, in class we have those sandbags. Imagine you have 2 10-pound sandbags on your arms, and you're not letting that weight drop your arms down, you're resisting that. So this is how we weightlift and create strength. And this is something safe that you could time yourself in, you know, unless you're clenching your jaw or whatever. Then you'll rotate your palms to face the ceiling. And then spread across your palms like you're at Oktoberfest and you're carrying 2 big trays of beer. And really spread, and then reach the arms to the sides. Draw the back ribs in, lengthen the size of the spine. Really reach. Then cut the arms back a little bit. What do you start to feel? If you took a look at your arms, are they still even and equal with one another? Reach the upper arm into the forearm, and forearm into the arm. Reach the upper arm into the hand. Keep the jaw quiet, soft. And then exhale and release. Lower down. And what do you feel? You feel like you've moved some of your prana in the arms? Yeah, so, you know, it could be that we're taking these tamasic, heavy, a little bit dull arms into our headstand and saying, hey, I want you to support the most important part of my body. But we haven't really worked on the foundation, which is now the arms, because we're not like standing on our feet anymore. Okay, you're gonna do that one more time, and then you're gonna take it into Trikonasana. And I'm gonna tell you why, because I see patterns in Trikonasana. And when my first teacher would teach an inversions workshop for headstands specifically, she always taught Trikonasana, and now I know why. I didn't in the beginning, but I know why now, because it really informs the range of motion in the arms, and then how that translates into our headstands. So let's stand one more time. Extend the arms and really reach. And if you're feeling tired, you know, you can also do this work at the wall. There's no problem. You can reach and reach the arms away from you. And actually, if we use the wall, stand with palms facing the wall, draw the back ribs in, and then reach the arms down, and also feel that action of the shoulders that Anne asked about. The inner shoulder blades move in, and the outer shoulder blades search for the wall like a suction cup. Then maintain that and reach the upper arm to the forearm as you extend your arms out to the sides, and notice that you have to go really slow to get that integration there. So go really slow, slower than molasses in February. Kind of like my son when he has to go somewhere because he's always late. Okay, so go slow and just honor really where your arms are moving. Take a while, if there's a restriction, to pause. If my arms aren't even up yet, to pause and address the slower moving arm. You can use your eyes to see. Keep yourself pinned against the wall. And then, you know, when you come to those parallel arms, you'll see it takes quite a bit of energy to hold yourself there. Really keep your hands pressed against the wall. Take a look. Good. Yes, yes, yeah. Very good. Keep the throat soft, eyes quiet. Very good. Yes. And then exhale and release. and then feel your arms. So, you know, it's like having a natural resource in the body that we haven't really tapped into, and then we want to go upside down. So, can I get a thumbs up if that felt like it was fairly intense? Yeah. So that could be a way in, right? Just to understand, like, we have to, you know, my really good friend, when I was struggling way back when I was a teacher, because students can be like, oh, just, can we do this? Can we do that? And then you want to please everybody. And he said, you're there to serve them, but you're not their servant. So we're here to serve our bodies, right? But we shouldn't be a servant to it. But we have to take care of it, because if we don't, then we have to be a servant to it, right? Okay. So now you're going to take those same arms, which should be different arms than what you started the class with, into your Trikonasana. And I'm going to show you what I see, just so you get a visual. And then hopefully make some refinements. Iyengar says, don't show them what not to do, because that's what's going to be in their head. But anyways, sometimes it's helpful. I actually think he did that because I think teachers are being highly critical and saying, you do this and don't do that stuff. So I think he was just telling them not to be such downers on the students. Okay, so we'll come into Trikonasana. So here I am, it's like my hands are at the wall. The only difference is now my palms are facing down towards the floor. So before I go into Trikonasana, I want to find those same arms. But often what I see in Trikonasana is this. I see, and I may be over exaggerating a little bit, but I often see that this upper arm is not at all stacked the way it just was at the wall. Or I see it somewhere like if someone's hypermobile, kind of like off in the distance here. But the arms in Trikonasana teach what you just did at the wall because it's the same arms up, right? So this would be a more accurate presentation, and this is how we can strengthen our arms for Shirshasana. And we keep those arms as we come up, right? We keep them as we come up. Okay, so let's give that a try. Yes, good. So as though you have that dowel. Good, yes. Very good. Karen Plater, your upper arm is going really far back. Keep the hand, yes, in line with the crown of the head. That's it. Good. Very good. And then exhale, keep the arms where they're at. Pull from the left wrist to come up. Good, yes. So it's now like that dowel is in your body. So another way to do that is to take a block in your upper arm. So we'll take it into the right hand, just to show you different ways to practice. It doesn't have to be, it could be wood, foam. So I'll just show you on the same side. So now I've got my block in my hand. I'm going to come down and then reach that block up. It sometimes just gives us a more sense of where we're moving in space, right? So I reach it up. You can see where's my arm, right? In line with everything else going on. Reach up. And then when I come up, I pull up from that block. So the stacking of the arms over top of each other. Good, and that's very good. You are the embodiment of the demonstration. Nancy, excellent. Chest is open. Very good. See the strength that's required for this. Simple pose, level 1, not simple, but you know. Excellent. Then come up by pulling the block. Excellent. Okay, good. So those are ways to, you know, sometimes we need strength, sometimes we need endurance, but we want to protect those things that are most sensitive. So what's most sensitive is our nervous system. So we have what we call in yoga philosophy, the karmendriya, the organs of action, which are the arms and the legs, and they're the servants. They're the heavy lifters. Usually we just kind of overdo the mobilization of the spine, particularly the lower back. And so through wear and tear, you know, or also, you know, the cervical spine is the same shape as the lumbar spine. So they're the most vulnerable parts of our body. And it's not, you know, a mystery why those areas are so common ailments for so many adults, or even not just adults. So when we engage the limbs, then the spine is actually neutral. The spine should just be like held by the limbs basically, and just takes the shape that the limbs puts it into. And I think that's just a way of looking at it in a different perspective. Okay, I'm just gonna take a look at the time here. So I do want to show a few, what to do. The questions were so good today. I think, you know, I'm gonna do, can I get a thumbs up if we can, if you're okay, if we do preliminary headstand stuff today, and then we do another session where we really go into the headstand, where I show what I was talking about, neck curvature and preliminary poses, because I think this is, it's a big subject. So, you know, I want to make it also digestible, because I know that I was told yesterday that I can sometimes, with my passion, I can overwhelm people with information. So I don't want to do that. But so I'm going to go through Prasarita 1 and Prasarita Padottanasana 1 and Prasarita Padottanasana 2. And we might take a quick stop at dog pose again. And then we're going to do a chair Viparita Dandasana, back bend over a chair, or something like a chair. We'll see what we have available to us. Okay. So take a couple blocks. No, forget the blocks. Let's just stand on our mats. Take the feet at least 5 feet apart, hands on your hips. So typically in Iyengar yoga, if we don't have the ropes, we don't have any props, we're just like working on getting into an inverted asana, getting into Shirshasana particularly. We start with Prasarita Padottanasana. If someone's menstruating, this was generally the pose we subbed in. So it inverts the trunk, and it also starts to inform the shoulders and the arms. And also gives us a sense of range of motion in the hips, right? Because we know in headstand, we have to walk in until our trunk is perpendicular to the floor. And so if we have difficulty folding forward in forward bends, there's going to be a challenge there. So you'll take your hands on your hips and you're going to fold forward, and then just take your trunk parallel to the floor. as you roll the buttocks up towards the ceiling, and then the elbows will come up towards the ceiling as you extend your front body forward. Okay, good. And then just observe what's happening there. What muscles are you using to keep your trunk parallel to the floor? Keep the front of the body, the anterior spine extending forward. Look up towards the, at the floor in front of you. Good. And then exhale, come up to standing again. So that too can feel like quite a bit of challenging work, but what it does is it strengthens the muscles in the back of the body. Sometimes I think in inversions we get confused about core strength, and yes, there is a need for core strength, but the core is like all over. So it's the engagement of the sides of the navel and the lumbar spine here that work together to get that integration. And when you're working hard in the asana, there's still a lot of spaciousness and should be a quietness in the abdominal area, which is key, because that's where you're going to be finding the space to take your trunk perpendicular to the floor. Okay, so now you're going to repeat that. And for some students, this is really hard work, right? They want to really bypass this stage. But it's, again, it's standing into the carmendria, the limbs, being firm in the limbs. And then from there, you're going to maintain your trunk height and take your hands to the floor. You can use blocks under your hands, or you can take your trunk a little bit lower. And then when your hands touch down, you energetically spread the legs away from each other. Look up without pinching the skin at the back of the neck. And then take a deep exhalation, full forward, and hold your ankle joints, but come up and concave back again, which means you're going to look up, and then you're going to try to draw your trunk in between your inner thighs as much as possible. And then pull the crown of your head towards the floor. Good. Now have a sense of how close your trunk is to your legs. And this is going to give you a clue about how when you go up into headstand, you'll have to really be mindful that you get your trunk perpendicular to the floor, right? Because this is coming into the range of motion of the hip flexors. Good. Very good. Yeah. Keep holding the ankle joints. Come back into concave. So that means you'll look up. Excuse me. Draw the back ribs in. Extend the front body forward and then slowly come up. Good. Nancy, it looks like you've made a lot of progress there. Good. Okay. So just because I know that she's been working on that. So now, if I come into the classical variation of the pose, and actually I should show with my feet back on the mat. The feet are parallel to the outer edges of the mat, and this is going to give me a measurement of where my hands are going to be. I wish I had like 3D. I'll probably show you also from the side. So as I come forward, or not the side, from the back, there's two ways into this, to work into this pose, right? The classical variation is I take my hands in line with my feet, I look up, and then I take the crown of the head down. My elbows are no wider than my shoulders, and it's like tripod or Shirshasana 2, tripod headstand. Okay, and if I show from the side quickly, I really want you to see the angle of the arm. So see how the forearms are perpendicular to the floor, and I'm pressing the hands down as though I was going to come up into headstand here. So this is really important work for the shoulders, and I'm pushing into the hands like I'm pushing away from the floor. Now, if you can't get your head all the way down there in that shape, then Gita, in her practice books, created a wonderful solution, which is you come forward, you take your hands down, you take your hands wide, and you don't have to worry about the hands, they can go really wide. And then the crown of the head comes down onto the mat. And that's a way of getting that head down. Now, you can also put something under your head if you need some support. But it shouldn't feel as though the head is heavy or weight bearing. And so stand firmly into the legs. Yeah, good. And bend the elbows out, broaden across the shoulders. Good, yes. So maybe, you work up to 2, 3, 5 minutes in this variation of Prasarita, which is very complementary to Shirshasana. And you will get, the effects, some of the effects of the inversion on the trunk. But before you come up, just observe your brain, how your brain feels in this direction facing the floor. And then slowly come up. Walk your hands forward, place your hands on your hips. So we sometimes, make things difficult for ourselves and we don't pick up the clues. And I think this is a big clue in the methodology towards Shirshasana, to spend some time there. And for me, I think it really highlights how important it is for the limbs to be integrated and doing the heavy lifting, that the spine just is quiet, neutral, but I have to have my arms and legs in a certain level of performance. And then it's not, so Iyengar always said in the asanas, there should be always a balance of active and passive. And so the brain should be passive, but the limbs should be active. So there's an alertness to the limbs. And the more alert the limbs are, the more passive the brain is. If we lose that alertness, then it seems like the mind starts to spiral again. But when we're held firmly in our own arms and legs, and for people that have a fear of going upside down, this starts to take them upside down, where, I love it, they call it topsy-turvy poses, because they feel topsy-turvy. And so it's kind of like scary to go upside down, but this over time, okay, head down, this is what it feels like, okay, I understand that. So I'm just going to do a quick time check here. Okay, Prasarita Padottanasana 2, we're going to leave for next time. I'm going to show you the neck curvature over the chair Viparita Dandasana. And so you'll need a yoga chair for this or a bench. So if anyone has these in a pinch, these Rubbermaid benches, or if you don't have any of that, a bolster or something in the shape of a bolster. Is there anyone that doesn't have it? Okay, yeah. And that will be for getting into the neck curvature. So I'll show that after I do the demo with the chair. Okay. So for chair back bends, you have a few options. There's many different ways to do this. And I'll just show you kind of a basic setup. And this is what I would say. So if you're finding back bends, or sorry, not back bends, headstand a bit challenging, and you want to make sure that you have the required range of motion in your upper body, neck, chest area, and for Sarvangasana, this is also the key pose, because the shape of your chest in this pose is the shape of the chest in shoulder stand. So I'm going to show with a little bit of height for the head, but okay, I'm just going to get started. There's just so many things. I'm sorry. Some students like to have their head supported, some not so much. The back of the chair, I put a sticky mat, but my chair is not on a sticky mat because I want it to be able to slide. A little bit harder if you're doing it at home on a carpet, but you'll get the idea. And we're gonna continue to work on this pose in my classes. So this is just a preview. I like to put a belt on my feet. A lot of times you'll see belt across the upper thighs or the ankles. You can forego the belt. I've got 2 vertical blocks at the wall. Let me just move this rope out of the way. 2 vertical blocks at the wall. This is going to go over the outer edges of my feet. I'm going to tuck my tailbone in, and it's the bottom of the shoulder blades that I'm looking for here. Bottom of the shoulder blades. Tuck the tailbone in, and then hold the backrest of the chair, come back. And then if I take my hands through the chair like this, can you see it's actually shoulder stand, because I would be holding my back in shoulder stand, right? I mean, the shape of the head is different. If my head was like this, it would be shoulder stand. If you turn me on an angle and I was standing on my shoulders. So this is the way into shoulder stand, really, and headstand. So as I take my head down now, it's the back of the crown of my head. I still keep my feet bent, my legs bent rather, feet on the floor. And then I'm going to hold the backrest of the chair and then lift my legs up and press into the wall. And then take my head down onto the support. And then I can also go here, I can go here, I can go here. Or just, not have any support at all and be like so. And then when I come up, bend my legs, hold the backrest of the chair, press down, lift up, sit upright, and we'll do a bit of a recovery pose. So if you okay, I'm just looking to see. Okay, so Karen, you're over a bolster, right? Yeah, okay, so just make sure that that bolster is right in the back of the neck. So it's more like a neck curvature. So it will, the end of the bolster will grab the C7 area. That's it, yes. And as long as it feels okay for you to take your head back in that way. Yes. Yeah. Okay, good. I'm gonna pin you so that, or actually, let me see here. I just want to take a look at a closer look at you, Karen. Okay. Yes, good. Does that, can I get a thumbs up? Does that feel okay? Yes, okay. Now, can you raise your left arm? Yes, that side looks a little bit tighter to me. Betty, if you look at Karen, this is a good way to do that neck curvature. So she's over a bolster with, has a couple blankets underneath, and she's just rolling. So the crest of the shoulders comes off the bolster. Yes. So Karen, pick your head up with your hands and then pull your chin towards your sternum bone, and then give the back of the neck a good stretch, and then pull your head back into your hands as you take it back, and see that you work to keep it completely straight. It tilts a bit to the left because the left shoulder is tight. Yes, yes, yes. Good, yeah. Very good, yes. And does that feel okay? Okay, good. That looks really good. Thank you. Betty, come a little bit more towards the edge of the shoulders there. So bend your legs and just a couple inches towards the head side. Yeah, and it should feel like it kind of grabs the shoulders. Yeah. Very good. I'm just looking at the people in chair, and that looks good. We've got some company, moral support. Very good. Nancy, excellent. Have you been practicing this pose? Or is it one that, well, I'm not going to disturb you, but that, yes, okay. She said yes, kind of. She's honest. She's very honest. So in either of these presentations, we get a kind of traction on the body. That gives us a sense of spaciousness, which is what we should feel when we go into the full inversion. Just a few more moments here. Okay. And then you'll slowly prepare to come up. So if you're holding the backrest of the chair, Bending your legs, slowly coming up on the bolster. You'll bend your legs and carefully roll to the right side. Okay. All right. Are you seeing me back on your screen now? Yes. Okay. Very good. So let's do a quick twist just to release that. So if you're sitting in the chair, you can hold on to the backrest of the chair, go for chair broad Vajrasana. And if you're on the bolster, just take your bolster fairly close to the wall. And you can sit in simple cross-legged position and just actually, sorry, I'll show from the back here. I'll show from the sides. I'm going to turn. Well, this is my left side, and just press my hands into the wall, draw the back ribs in, sit tall, lengthen the sides of the spine, and then you'll just do both sides, changing the crossing of the legs. So that's just a nice way to release the spine after doing a back bend. Good. Good. Yes. Okay. And then exhale and release. Okay. And let's set up for Shavasana. I'm sorry if this was a lot of information in one session, but I think there's a lot to unpack here. And, you know, I really feel like information is empowering. And so I think in the Iyengar tradition, they were very steady at writing articles, documents, books, many books. I mean, beyond Light on Yoga, Iyengar has published many books that, you know, are available mainly in the Indian subcontinent, but Prashant, very prolific writing. And, you know, all these books are like 150 rupees, 300 rupees, like nothing. And so really, I think their legacy is just this generosity of sharing. And so when we teach in this way, I think we can, I feel like in some ways it can be a bit overwhelming for the students, but it comes from a place of really our own journeys and wanting to share the bounty of this practice. So we'll keep going, and with this list, regardless, I'll send out the recordings if you can't make it, and I'll just keep all. So the next one will appear in the schedule as a free class on Tuesday, the next Tuesday we have. And then we'll just lie down for a brief Shavasana, your choice. And I welcome your questions after the session. If you have any, feel free to send them to me. And if I forget to send things out that I said I would, I know Nancy will keep me honest, so I'm good with that. Okay, so maybe just lie down because there's a lot of information. Lie down, put a little bit of weight on your thighs, and let your arms go. Extend your arms, extend your legs. Release your spine. So just pay particular attention now to the head. There was a lot of information, so see that it's not feeling too jammed, that there's still a lightness there. See that the skin across the temple, forehead region is soft, forehead soft, temples broad, eyes quiet. Connect with the breath that moves through the body. And then just take a moment to be in awe of the power and potential of our own individual bodies and what it's capable of. It's very easy to get caught up in what we feel cannot be done or achieved or accomplished. But in reality, when we look at it all on a broader spectrum, what we can get done is really, as Prashant Iyengar would say, a wonderment. And if it's through our body that we reach our true self, then we don't want to be down on ourselves. We want to treat ourselves with Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, joy, compassion, and friendliness. Namaste. Enjoy the rest of your day.